on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way.
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Some content may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
We say fuck a lot. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Mountain Murders. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Feels like it's been a while since I've been in the driver's seat.
It's been a while since we've been in the podcast seats.
We missed 1 week, and honestly, it feels like we've had a month off from podcasting. I've been like chomping at the bit to get back.
It does. We are in our new studio.
We definitely are, Dylan. What do you think so far?
I think it's good. We may have to treat her a little bit. So if this does sound a good bit differently or different, that's the reason. We're in a different room.
We also have a lot of traffic. I didn't realize how much traffic we have on our street.
Apparently, everybody and their mama comes through here.
Everybody in a big truck with one of those vroom, vroom engines. They want to drive on our street.
Yeah, so we're not sure about that being picked up. So bear with us as we get this worked out. We will work it out, and I do believe we will be a bit more echoey. It sounds like in my earphones here, and we will continue to address that.
Well, we're going to get it fixed, bro. It's going to be okay.
They don't believe us because we
Dylan,
don't fix our volume.
No, we don't fix anything.
Because we don't know how.
Yeah, well, it's true.
Anyway,
We're unprofessional podcasters.
We are happy to be back. We've missed everyone.
There's so much true crime news happening, and we take a week off, and we've missed like every fucking thing. So we have to talk about some of the true crime news. We missed our midweek, so we're gonna have to throw together a true crime recap, a recap of all the news that's happened this week, because it has been so much intense true crime world right now.
Huge stories, huge cases coming back into the headlines, and we will have it's likely a very long midweek to cover all that and dig deep into it. Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and give a shout out to Justin, our new patron.
Justin is sponsoring today's episode.
And also Surly Sriracha, who has joined us here on Patreon. Dylan, are you ready to get into the story? So it's November already. We're supposed to be in Ohio, but since we missed last week's episode, we have one more North Carolina case to squeak out.
You know what might happen is we might just start just churning this shit out and maybe some bonus episodes. I really want to make it up to the listeners.
So what's awesome about this new space, it's much more video friendly. We have so much room and can set up lighting in here. We can't wait to get on the video train.
I just honestly don't know what angle's not going to make me look fat. My head huge.
I think we just have to accept that we're chunky.
I think I just have to be.
But I just made pecan pie brownies, so that's probably why.
I'm going to wear green in front of a green screen. I think that'll work.
Baking addiction. Dylan, today's case, so infamous, it sparked a murder ballad.
Wow.
Are you ready?
I've been ready.
Facts about Ellen Smith are few and far between. What I do know is that she was probably born around 1874 in Forbush, which is located in Yadkin County, North Carolina.
Yes, it's next door to Three Bush.
To an unmarried 22-year-old mother, the head of the household was listed as Catherine Smith, her grandmother, aged 44. An 1880 census record lists a 6-year-old mulatto girl named Ellen Smith. Now, you've probably heard that term before. Mulatto was a term used previously to describe a mixed-race child. Now, perhaps Ellen was simply dark-skinned. Maybe she had sort of, like an olive complexion. Or she may have been part American Indian or Melungeon.
Yes, and I would assume nowadays mulatto is not a term that's used.
Now we use biracial, yeah. In 1890, and this is according to old newspaper records, by the way. In 1890, Mary Ellen Smith finds herself in Winston Salem working as a domestic servant for the household of Kenny Rose, who was a clerk at a large retailer in town. Because she was very petite, Rose thought she was maybe only 13 at the time of her employment. Her cooking was described as quite satisfactory by Rose, but he said that she was not that bright,
Okay.
that she seemed a bit delayed, so perhaps she had some cognitive issues. In December of 1891, she left briefly to work in another household, but later returned to Rose's again to resume her employment. By 17, Ellen found herself in a position of accomplishment for a poor girl, working at the swanky, beautiful, brand new Hotel Zinzendorf in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So by the late 1800s, Winston-Salem was well on its way to becoming a major city in North Carolina. With the construction of the railroad, the city was bustling. A tobacco industry was the thriving economic driver. Winston housed the largest tobacco market, basically in the South. Pleasant Haynes and R.J. Reynolds were in competition, buying up large parcels of land at this time. Reynolds succeeded in the tobacco market, while Haynes moved on to the second most lucrative business in the area, textiles.
Would that be like the Hanes underwear?
Yes.
So the tobacco industry will be an economic driver for this area and the state for the most part
yeah.
for decades to follow.
Yes, North Carolina was a huge tobacco producer.
Yeah.
And so you have R.J. Reynolds, and at one point you had Reynolds and Haynes competing, but then Haynes broke off, started making the underwear that you love so much.
And now many, of course, tobacco's fallen out of fashion, if you will. Many of those.
Not with these kids. They love a good vape.
Well, they still want the nicotine.
Yeah.
But that's minus the tobacco.
Okay.
Right. So it's old.
I don't know.
Us old smoker. Yeah.
I don't know how it works.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if nicotine's just found in the tobacco or if it grows on the nicotine tree. I'm not sure. But all us old smokers are dying off, right? So, yeah, the kids just want, like, grape drink.
They want, like, blueberry pie flavored Jewel pods or whatever.
Yeah, they want to blow clouds, bro.
Yeah, my daughter's talking about how every time she goes in the bathroom at school, it's just, like, clouds of vape smoke. And they're not allowed to vape at school. And I'm like, well, where are the teachers? I don't know. Because they would have busted us for smoking in the bathroom.
Now, would that change everything if the song was vaping in the boys' room?
Yes.
Or is that going to be the modern day equivalent?
Yes.
From the non-binary crew?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It'd have to be vaping in the inclusive bathroom.
Vaping in the unisex bathroom?
I don't think you're allowed to say unisex anymore.
You can't say that?
I don't know.
Wow.
We're old, so we're inappropriate. Okay. So the majestic Hotel Zinzendorf, which, by the way, Dylan, I had an opportunity to stop at the historic site where there's a marker for the Hotel Zinzendorf. Beautiful area.
You were actually telling me how very interesting Winston-Salem is.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's really cool. A lot of historic stuff. It seemed like that it was...
a lot of really beautiful big old houses.
Yeah. So we should go down there and hang out.
Yeah, that's what I've been telling you. Okay, so the Majestic Hotel was built in 1892 at the cost of $150,000, making it the most expensive building ever built in this part of the state at that time. It was considered one of the most opulent hotels in the South. The hotel quickly became a favorite of the city's high society. You know, got to go hang out there at the ballroom, the bar, have lunch.
Well, that's where I'd be found at
the Hotel Zinzendorf.
with the high society.
I feel like you'd be down at the
Ba-boom.
Knight's Inn,
The Knight's Inn.
where it's like $30 and you're guaranteed to get some bed bugs. That's
I'll-
part of your package deal.
I'm going to warn you. I'm going to open this carbonated beverage.
Thanks. Stop.
It's just water,
He's
folks.
obnoxious.
It's just water.
Designed by noted Boston architects Wheelwright and Have, the hotel was named for Count Nicholas Ludwig von Zinzendorf, patron of the Moravians who settled in what is now Forsyth County. The Hotel Zinzendorf was a monumental 4-story shingle-style wooden structure over 300 feet long with an 18-foot wide front porch.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, photos of this hotel, very fancy. During her employment at Zinzendorf, Ellen came into the orbit of a young man named Peter de Graaf. Described as a pretty girl, by an acquaintance who knew Ellen. They said, quote, she was not bad looking, with a rather bold countenance and a rather sharp nose. Her short hair tended to curl, and she had blue eyes and straight white teeth.
Wow.
Well, I guess it's important to have straight teeth at that time.
Well, I'd say that would stand out. I mean, honestly, because, dental care and everything was quite a lot less of that going on.
Look, if I didn't have braces and had to go around with my childhood teeth, they were snaggled as fuck.
So you would be an old snaggletooth bitch.
Look, I was a thumbsucker as a kid. I
Oh.
will admit this. So I had a big gap. Well, I had buck teeth and they had a gap between them, right? And then I had this one tooth in the front that was like almost completely twisted around, like all gnarly.
So you had one of those teeth who was just like not with the rest of the teeth. It was
like a rebel outpost tooth.
Yeah, a little James Dean tooth.
Yeah, so if I had those teeth as an adult, because I had some snaggly teeth.
So what you're describing right now is privilege.
Yes.
You had privilege. You had a mother, maybe had other shortcomings, but at least she did care about straightening your little crooked teeth out.
Well, my dad paid for those braces.
And well, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
And so many people didn't have access to that.
You have never had braces, and you have really nice teeth. So you're fortunate.
And this incredible genetic soup that created this specimen, if you will, often described as a specimen, straight teeth. I lucked out there.
You do have nice teeth.
Yes, but I'm fat, small hands, small feet, and a huge head, but straight teeth.
It's not the only thing that's big.
It's true. So's my heart.
I know. That's what I was going to say. You have a big heart. Anyway, back to the story.
Your game's obvious.
With my snaggle tooth. I'm telling you, I had to have braces. Dylan, my parents, it was like, we can't afford this shit, but this kid looks like she's been eating corn through a picket fence.
Well, okay.
I had some fucked up teeth.
I'm glad they squared those up because some people don't have that ability or that luck.
Yeah, so. I'm just saying. So in the 1800s, they would have never been like, there's that girl with the straight teeth. They'd have been like, there's that girl with them fucking jaggedy, whatever's going on with her mouth.
Who's been that poor peasant girl over there?
The poor peasant girl. It is likely Ellen met Peter while working at the hotel, and some speculate perhaps Peter was also employed there. DeGraff, who was in his early 20s, had lived a rough life. He began carrying a pistol and drinking whiskey at a very early age.
That
sounds like your childhood.
That definitely proves that you've lived a fairly rough life. If you're downing shots of whiskey and
you're 11,
yeah, and packing a pistol.
Born around 1870 near Elizabeth City to Anthony, who was a native of Bordeaux, France, and his wife Ellen. At age 6, Peter moved with his family to Forsyth County. And, of course, my computer is just going to skip ahead of me here. So, Elizabeth City's on the coast, so that's quite a move if you think about coming from the coast to Forsyth County, which is in the Piedmont area. So, good distance for them. So he moved to Forsyth County. His father worked as a basket maker, and his older brother, Lee, was employed as a marble cutter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, when we were talking about Rob Coulthard on the last episode, we were mentioning that, there's a big furniture industry in this area, and then along with that comes all these other jobs like glass cutter, painter, what have you, and so a marble cutter.
There was also a huge demand for baskets apparently back then.
Basket maker.
I think
somebody had to make them. Think you had to carry all your shit around.
I think we should bring baskets back. You know what I mean? Like personalize them and decorate them yourself.
Carry around your baguette that you buy at the local bakery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always want that cliche bag of groceries they have in movies. When they're walking on the sidewalk, it always has the baguette and maybe like some the carrot, the top of the carrots kind of over the top. Or what's the one more item that would be in this bag?
Like a nice bottle of wine.
A bottle of wine.
Right?
Yes.
Maybe some steaks you picked up from the local butcher.
Ooh.
Yeah. So he had many run-ins with the law and was arrested at least once on a gun charge. And he fled to Virginia after that charge. DeGraff was known as a playboy, a drinker, and a gambler who was fast with the ladies.
I'm fast with the ladies, too.
Many a young lady had been, quote, ruined or gotten into trouble with Peter. One of the women was reportedly found dead under suspicious circumstances, and it was speculated that Peter killed her.
That qualifies as being ruined. Peter's wrecking chicks, man.
Well, if they get ruined, they're having a baby out of wedlock, dude.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's just
this was a different time, Dylan.
Well, I know what they meant. But, it's just...
he was like, it was like smash or pass, and he's just like smashing all of them.
But it should be affecting his reputation as well. I just hate that one-sided BS.
Well, it is. People are talking about how he's out he's a lady ruiner.
And possibly killing.
Yeah. Against the advice of just about everybody, Ellen began an affair with Peter, the nice girl who could have attracted a nice young man, but Ellen was smitten with the scoundrel Peter DeGraff. Why do good girls like bad boys?
It's a tale old as time, Nice guys finish last. That's what they say. But you know what? In reality, what happens is nice guys are stable and they're sweet.
Yes.
And in the end, typically, that's where the people end up that like bad boys, girls, whatever.
They want to end up with someone stable.
Yes.
I agree.
Later on in life.
And I ended up with you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, but I got like an edge to me. You know what I mean? I'm like a
You call it edge, I call it stupidity. Either way.
I'm like a well-used, your favorite knife in the kitchen. You know what I mean? It's not going to cut you to the bone, but I will always get the job done.
I don't even understand what any of that means.
I mean, it's straightforward. I mean, honestly.
Okay. Friends warned her that she was heading for a heartbreak. Heading for a heartbreak. Like a power ballad, Dylan. Peter was not the marrying kind, but Ellen refused to see past the veneer of charming, handsome Peter.
I wish my name was Peter.
She was blinded by his good looks and sparkling personality.
and
like when I started dating you and everybody told me run.
Yeah.
But I was like, I can't. He's just too sexy. And he got this great personality. Makes me laugh. Look at him.
If my name was Peter, I'd make Peter jokes all the time. Yep.
It's because you're 12. Ellen and Peter would meet regularly in the nearby woods outside the hotel and would spend hours doing, well, you can imagine.
Getting ruined.
Summer loving. The summer days and warm evenings were perfect for the developing romance. And they liked to canoodle in the forest, in the woods, Dylan.
Would that work for you? That would be weird for me.
Well, yeah, but
we've been over this before.
You were really weird, so.
I'm not vanilla, though.
You've never canoodled in the 1800s.
I'm not vanilla, but I do need,
a certain level of privacy.
I think so.
A privacy.
Yes.
By July of 1892, Ellen found herself pregnant with Peter's child. Now, there is some rumor, perhaps, that Ellen may have birthed another child belonging to Peter, which did not survive infancy. But there's no solid proof of this. It's only, rumor. Now, according to the story, Ellen left. Remember, she was employed with the Rose household, and she left for a couple of months to work in a different household, but then returned to the Rose home again. But the real story behind this, supposedly, the fake story, we don't know for sure, is that Ellen actually left the Rose household, returned to Yadkinville to have this baby, the secret baby, telling her employer that she had found work in a different household. Ellen then returned after the baby was stillborn or died at birth to work again for the Roses.
Oh, okay.
But that couple of months hiatus that she had taken off was actually to go birth this secret child.
I mean, how does that even work? How do people not notice? Is it like heavy clothes or multiple layered clothes?
I guess you're wearing a big dress and an apron because you're a house servant. So, it probably wouldn't be that hard to conceal a pregnancy. And if she's a tiny, they've described her as being a petite woman.
So she just had that little tiny bump.
She probably did.
Okay.
Certainly something was going on between Peter and Ellen. They were spotted together on the streets of downtown Winston-Salem and at Pitt's store, which was a saloon located in the Ramcat neighborhood. Early in 1891, DeGraff was suspected in a murder case. So let's talk a little bit more about Peter. On a Saturday night in May, a man named Wilburn Walker and John Smith were in the area of Bellows Pond. They stopped by Lee Wilson's place for an encounter with some ladies of the night, but those ladies were already with customers. So the men moved on to another establishment. After harsh words were exchanged with these customers, because, you know, they were trying to get in with these sex workers.
Yeah, but they're busy.
And they're busy.
I mean, what are you trying to
These
do?
men sort of had some words with the men at this other establishment, like, "Hey, thanks fucking lot. We was trying to get in. We was trying to get up in here."
Damn, and he's like, "Just give me a sec, bro. I'm in the middle of this."
Yeah, so they exchanged some harsh words with these fellas. But then they moved on to this other establishment that was owned by a black man named Henry Goins and his wife Mary. Now, the men from the Wilson establishment ended up following behind DeGraff and like his group of friends or whatever. And they were like exchanging insults all along the way. Now, at the Goins place, a member of the following group, wearing a light suit and a straw hat, pulled a pistol and began firing. Mary Goins was struck in the face and died instantly. So I'm sorry, it is speculated, I'll get back to this, but Peter DeGraff was part of the following group. So he'd been, I guess, at the place where the ladies had been.
He was at the original place.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So he was with the group of men already
Yeah.
engaged with ladies of the night.
Yeah, so Mary Goins was struck in the face and died instantly. Walker then returned fire with his gun. Smith was caught in the crossfire and was killed. And the man in the straw hat took off with his friends. And Wilburn Walker was arrested that night, though police were not sure what to charge him with, because he was defending himself.
Yeah.
But he also was opening fire in this business.
Well, yeah. I mean, someone shooting at him, then he returned fire. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of a tricky situation, you know?
A public hearing was held to try to determine the identity of the man in the straw hat. Walker was released for a lack of evidence, and though many said Peter DeGraff fit the description of the suspect, the man in the straw hat, he was never arrested. But rumor was he had shot and killed this woman, Mary Goins, and had killed Smith in this crossfire.
Hell of a reason to get into a gunfight. You know what I mean? Just arguing with, I'm sure alcohol likely involved. People having drinks, you know, hanging out with the ladies. You know how it goes, popping bottles, whatever it is they do in the VIP section. And then next thing you know, it's like the OK Corral up here.
Yeah, well, I guess it was just different times, Dylan. Peter and Ellen, though seen often together, were usually spotted arguing. You've seen those couples around town.
Yeah, we see those couples all the time.
It's pretty funny. A merchant on Trade Street would later say that Peter had brought Ellen into his store, introducing her as his girlfriend, and told the merchant to provide Ellen with whatever she wanted. She purchased a few items, mostly candy, and every month Peter would pay the bill. But in early 1892, Peter returned to the store and told the owner that he was no longer engaged to Ellen and would no longer be responsible for paying her bills going forward. Yet in July of 1892, Ellen was pregnant again. So, as I mentioned before, Dylan, Peter was a wild man who did not wish to be tamed. His first instinct when he found out Ellen was pregnant was to skip town. And through a friend, he sent a letter to Ellen. The contents of the letter have been lost to time, but most say Peter broke it off with Ellen, explaining that he wasn't ready to be tied down and had no plans to be a father to their child, and he was certainly not marrying her.
Okay, he does not have very good character.
No, and
Just
Ellen was devastated.
He's just a big old POS.
It was reported that she spent the following days locked in her room crying. She was inconsolable. The talk of the breakup made its way around the hotel's employees and throughout town. Ellen's absence from work was noticed, and Peter was bothered by the constant whispers and disapproving looks of those who knew the story. So everybody's whispering behind his back,
Well,
like he's a piece of shit.
yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't have done all these things, you know? I mean, you earned that reputation as far as I can tell.
Well, yeah, people want to go do bad deeds, but then they don't like it when those bad deeds catch up to them. They don't want everybody to know. What do you think, they're going to accept responsibility for their actions?
Yeah.
No, we live in a blame everybody else society, Dylan. As long as Ellen was alive, Peter would be on the line, expected to care for her. Everyone was looking at him to do the right thing, settle down, and accept responsibility. Now, it was on July 20th that he sent another note to Ellen stating that he wanted to meet her at their secret spot in the woods to reconcile.
Ah, yeah, you remember our old sweet, sticky spot in the woods.
Why is it going to be sticky?
Oh, it's because it's under pine trees, dude. What are you talking about?
I'm just wondering.
Gross.
I'm just wondering what you're talking about. Was it under a maple tree? It's like someone's been tapping it for syrup.
No, I mean, it's not that kind of sticky. It's like pine tar sticky. Don't you hate that?
Well, I don't know. I'm not rolling around in pine tar.
You never
You
got
act
it.
like I'm trying to roll around in some sap.
You never got it on you as a kid or something, and you can't get it off for like 5 days. It has to
Never.
wear off.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't believe that because I know you was running around with little dirty feet
It's true.
and a dirty face,
Don't run around like that.
some granny beads around your neck.
Yeah. Ellen washed up and put on her nicest dress, a blue calico, and she was also wearing a white apron. People saw the young woman emerge from her residence at Mr. K. Rose's house on 5th Street. She purchased a yellow handkerchief at Cole and Rose's store, then took a car for the West End. She was last seen by a spring in the woods behind the hotel. But Ellen did not return from her meeting. The next morning, July 21st, hotel guests, including a woman named Hattie Pratt, who was the hotel laundress, came to the front desk to report having seen an unknown man who told them of a body in the woods located just behind the hotel. After informing them, the man disappeared. A few separate guests reported this incident, up until the point that the hotel manager finally decided to go check out the report after he'd heard this from several people. In the woods behind the hotel, the manager discovered the body of a young woman shot through the heart with a single bullet. The woman, whom he knew was Ellen Smith, had powder burns on her dress, indicating the shot was at a very close range. Ellen had been in an intimate distance, it appeared, from the person who had killed her.
So she was very close to them.
Yes.
Okay.
So this kind of let him know, as well as authorities, that this was someone she knew and trusted. Her white apron was hanging on a branch, kind of away from the body, but it was also stained with powder residue. As more residents became aware of the murder, they made their way into the woods to observe the young woman's body. The corpse was removed to a barn nearby, and a post-mortem exam was conducted. A letter was discovered on her body, signed by Peter DeGraff. The letter hinted at reconciliation of what appeared to be like a lover's quarrel. Angered, the townsfolk decided to form a posse, and of course, the suspect that they were after, Peter DeGraff. However, Peter was not around. He already got the hell out of Dodge, Dylan.
So it's still back in the day when they literally get them and their buddies and go hunting your
I
ass.
just wanted to form a posse.
I always wanted to be part of a posse,
Right.
but I don't know that would you want to lead you'd want to lead the posse, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to go
I
with.
want a pitchfork and like a torch.
That seems like a lot of
But
responsibility.
not like Charlottesville style.
No, but I want to be able to leave the posse at any time as soon when it seems fit to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like the leader's got to hang around.
No, I could always step down and like pass the torch on to someone else.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay, so you have a line of succession.
I could, but I
Okay.
probably wouldn't because I like to be in control. Dr. Dalton found the bullet had penetrated the liver and severed a large vein below the heart. The bullet entered the breast just below the arm and went through the body. Now, in the meantime, after this has all taken place, authorities went to the Rose household And it was assumed that Ellen was an indigent and an orphan because Rose's wife had nothing to say about the woman's family when they asked about her, where she came from, whatever. The body was buried at the Potter's Field in the county near where the airport stands today. Nobody bothered to report Ellen's death to her family because no one took the time really to find out who her family was. When her employer was like, I don't know. They just didn't even press on.
So they're just like, oh, well.
With trying to find, they just assumed she was a poor orphan. Sheriff Teague of Forsyth County issued an arrest warrant for Peter DeGraff. His parents' house was searched along with other places he was known to frequent, but they had no luck in locating the man. Days stretched into weeks and then months with no action by the sheriff. Very little was being done to apprehend DeGraff, though people reported having seen him all around Winston-Salem. One newspaper report described DeGraff as, quote, strutting around the county in broad daylight while our officers timidly keep out of his way.
Strutting around. Nice.
He's like, see my strut? Do-do-do-do.
Doop. I'm strutting on over to you.
Yeah, exactly. The sheriff's just like, not over to me.
You get away from me.
I ain't see you there.
I'm not going to look at you. I refuse to acknowledge your strut.
I'm not looking at you. And he's got his little hands up over his eyes.
Are you strutting? I don't know. I ain't looking.
Time went by and eventually people lost interest in the criminal. It wasn't until a new sheriff was elected, a man named MacArthur, that the case was revived. MacArthur found DeGraff staying at the residence of a man named Gideon Russell near Pitts Bar, which was west of the city. DeGraff was seen at the scene of Ellen's murder in the woods behind the hotel, and then folks had spotted him leaving on a train bound for Rural Hall. DeGraff walked on foot back to Winston-Salem from Mount Airy. However, some people believe that he rode the train back. In the company of John Russell, Peter had visited his parents but didn't tell them that he was going to be spending the night someplace in Winston-Salem. Instead, he went on to old man Gideon Russell's house. When police searched that home, they found Peter DeGraff asleep. He made no resistance and asked to be treated as a gentleman.
If you don't mind, sir, let me get me overcoat.
Peter offered up his arsenal, which included 3 pistols, 2 of them 44s, and the third a 38. It was said later that Peter was quite a good shot with the 38. Because, he's been carrying it since he was a child.
Yeah, he's been packing it since he was 3.
Yeah. At the jail, Peter DeGraff was placed in a cell with another accused murderer, a man named Andy Stevenson. Stevenson had allegedly killed a woman named Polly Watson and had placed her under a log and pressed her to death.
Huh. That sounds horrible.
They was doing it big back in the 1800s.
Placed her under a log and rolled it across her, basically?
Pressed her to death. Or I'm imagining maybe put the log on her and then jumped up and down on it. I don't know.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, either way, I don't want to be pressed to death by a log. I feel like you're guaranteed to poop your pants if someone's pressing you like that.
I feel like I'd be unimpressed.
Stupid.
Yeah.
During questioning, it was determined that DeGraff was a huge liar. He spoke freely but made outrageous claims. Now, he claimed that he had traveled to Mount Airy, then Mexico, then around the world before returning home where he knew arrest was imminent.
Oh, wow. So he's just been everywhere.
He's been everywhere. He just wanted to see the world, before he gave himself up.
He just got in a hot air balloon and went around the world.
A Zeppelin.
Yeah, he was an airship.
Yeah. Peter professed to know a great deal more than he would admit and threatened to turn state's evidence if taken to trial. State's evidence of what? I mean, this guy. A rumor circulated that he knew about another murder of a person named Goins. Again, Mary Goins was killed, but there was no confirmation of this. It's just, what people were saying. Because again, everybody suspected he had killed that woman. Now, it was determined that he did actually go to Mount Airy and worked at a sawmill just after the murder had taken place, and that he had worked there for a period under the name of H.D. Hendricks. And he admitted to that part.
Oh, okay.
This is, he had to get some money to travel the world, Dylan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to go work at the sawmill for a couple of months.
Yeah. At the preliminary hearing, it was told that the important document, the letter that had been written by Peter to Ellen, was missing. The chief of police, named Bradford, had a good memory, and members of the coroner's jury were placed on the stand to testify as to the letter's contents. During the preliminary hearing, de Graaf was dressed flashy and appeared unconcerned. He was laughing, winking, and seemed eager to talk to just about anybody who was sitting in the audience.
Now that seems like the way you should act as a defendant. Unconcerned, jovial, winking, like you're taking nothing at all serious about these proceedings. And that's going to work every time.
One newspaper reporter described de Graaf's appearance as a person with a hard heart and a hardened conscience.
Oh, wow.
He stated, of course, Peter stated that he wasn't guilty and had nothing to do with Ellen's murder. But then he said he was ready for trial because he knows he's innocent. So he's like, I didn't do this. Let's go to trial, damn it.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I see this persona he's putting forth in court is all part of the plan.
Yeah.
I'm not worried because there's nothing to worry about because I'm innocent.
Exactly.
Wow. Damn
very, very confident.
That's some Perry Mason shit right there.
Dr. Dalton was the first witness sworn in. He said Ellen Smith came to her death, or, her real name is Mary Ellen, but Ellen Smith had came to her death by gunshot. Then a Dr. Galloway was called next and gave the same conclusion as Dr. Dalton. A woman named Mrs. McCandless was the next witness. She remembered the time Ellen was shot, and she lived in kind of that western part of town. Now, Mrs. McCandless claimed that she was coming from the spring around 3 p.m. just beyond the hotel, and she heard a laugh. That's when she saw Ellen Smith sitting under a bush, and the pair kind of shared a smile. There was a man lying on her, like on the ground, but partially in her lap, like his head was upon her lap, and his face was sort of turned away from this woman, Mrs. McCandless, so she didn't get a good look at his face, but she did describe him as being dressed in a light-colored suit, which is what other people will say they saw Peter in, as he's telling folks there's been a murder back here.
Do not dare hold the fact that I have a springtime palette. The pastels look rather nice on me.
Peter's official trial began on August 11th of 1893. Ellen's aunt, a woman named Rosa, hired Glenn and Manley attorneys to conduct the prosecution because she didn't have any faith in the solicitor, a man named Barber. So I guess back then you could just hire your own prosecutors to try the case.
That doesn't make sense to me. Because, if you hire the person, they're going to lean towards you, right?
Well, it's the prosecution, so yeah.
Oh, so wait. They're the defendant's family.
Okay.
Are you saying the victim's family?
Ellen's aunt hired these two attorneys to be the prosecutors because she didn't trust the public solicitor, the public defender, or the public prosecutor.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Wow.
Which is very weird, but I guess at this time you could hire attorneys to be the prosecution.
That's interesting.
Which I guess, either way would work, right? Because they're presenting facts. They're an attorney.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I guess I don't see it.
The same as having a DA in there.
Yeah, well, even the publicly elected or whatever prosecutor is going to be wanting to win for you, the victim, right?
Yeah.
Or they wouldn't be prosecuting the person. So I guess it's not that strange.
It is kind of weird.
To hire your own.
Think about it, and I'm like, well, I guess it's not that weird. But the courthouse was packed with male spectators because women were not allowed inside at that time. It was just considered very inappropriate.
It's the good old days.
Except for this woman, Rosa, who was allowed to be seated up front. Because she's Ellen's family, and she's also paid for this prosecutor.
It's so funny when people pine for the good old days. Because a lot of things were very backwards. And a lot of parts of our society were quite different, and I don't think I would enjoy them. But, it's funny, the simpler times, people call it, when things were quite a bit more sexist and racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange.
People just can't wait to get back to that. The most damning piece of evidence was the note which had been found on Ellen's person. For 3 days, jurors heard testimony from 42 witnesses and saw evidence. It cost the county $178 to try this case, which was a lot of money at that time, and only took the jury about 8 hours to deliberate once the trial wrapped up. Found guilty, the judge took no time in sentencing Peter to death by hanging.
Wow.
An appeal was denied by the state Supreme Court, and Peter was set to die on February 8th of 1894. Peter continued denying that he had any hand in Ellen's death. While in jail, Peter began suffering from insomnia and became addicted to sleeping powders, Dylan.
Oh, I bet it was the good stuff. Like some laudanum or some shit.
Well, I was reading about this, about these sleeping powders, and yeah, I think you're right. And a lot of these cures back then, these miracle,
They had opium in it.
it was like opium and then just straight liquor.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, like the tinctures and all the
Yeah,
little,
it was just
the
booze.
cure-alls and stuff like that.
Yes, it was mostly just
Yeah.
booze.
So it's either spiked with opium, cocaine, or booze.
Yeah, so these sleeping powders, probably like he's sniffing opium.
And it worked.
Or mixing opium in his
You know?
drink. And who
Yeah.
knows? On the morning of February 7th, Peter, wearing a black suit, which was purchased by the county, prepared for his execution. He met with a minister and had his last meal, which I couldn't find what the last meal was.
Oh, man, it's back.
I always like to know.
Back then, it was probably like room temperature water and bread. Let's be honest.
Well, from what I understand, at this county jail, there was like a family that lived next door, and they would prepare meals for the inmates
Wow.
and bring food over. So
Oh.
it's like home cooked food,
God, I bet it was.
and they got paid. And like I'll get to that in a minute, but Peter was like hanging out with these people's kids on the day of his execution.
Okay.
Yeah, like this family that cooked for him, like their sons came over and were like hanging out and visiting with Peter before he was killed.
Well, he may have got all the fresh butters and jams and such.
Maybe. He was then, after he met with the minister and had this delicious home-cooked meal, he was taken by carriage to the county poorhouse property.
I request the largest jellied biscuit in the county, sir, for my last meal.
I've always thought that term, the poorhouse, was funny. What is a poorhouse? I mean, my daddy would always be like, "You're going to put me in the poorhouse."
Well,
But I don't know what an actual poorhouse is.
well,
Is
you
that where, like,
go ahead and Googleize that. I would assume it's something like to the effect of a shelter or place where the indigent and homeless end up.
Yeah, it's called a poorhouse or a workhouse. It's a government-run facility to support and provide housing for the dependent or the needy.
Huh? But they made him work.
They did.
Interesting.
So he was taken by carriage to the county poorhouse, which was located at North Liberty Street. And if you're in Winston-Salem or you've been there, it's where Fairchild Drive intersects now. That was the location of the poorhouse. Thousands of people gathered for the hanging with picnic lunches. Peter was greeted by his brothers. He handed them a Bible and his hat. His father, Anthony, was not in attendance as he could not bear to watch his son's execution. On stage, the sheriff read the death warrant and asked Peter if he had anything to say. The psalm, "Am I a Soldier of the Cross?" was read by his reverend, with Peter joining in. Finally, Peter confessed. He said, quote, "My hands have been stained in blood. I have kept it back for months. God told me to. Yes, I shot that woman." He claimed to have been drunk at the time and that Ellen wouldn't leave him alone. Her last words to Peter, "Lord, have mercy on me." Peter then told the audience not to drink liquor, don't gamble, and not to go with loose women. The black hood was placed over his head, and he said, quote, "I will see that bright sun there, but a few minutes longer."
Wow.
I will see it, but a few minutes longer, Dylan.
He cleansed his soul on the way out so he could be received into the kingdom of heaven.
Yes. The sheriff then tipped the trap, and Peter shot down through the floor. 7 minutes later, he was pronounced dead.
Oh my gosh.
And he was buried only a few yards away from Ellen Smith at the Potter's Field.
So it's one of those old school hangings where it don't break your neck. You just
He's
hang
just
there
a swinging.
and strangle to death.
Swinging.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what he deserved.
Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't deserve a swift death.
Now, no one knows who wrote the murder ballad, Poor Ellen Smith, but it was first mentioned in publication in 1911. And it is a famous murder ballad that has been performed by tons of bluegrass and traditional musicians, from Ralph Stanley to Molly O'Day, the Kingston Trio, who made Hang Your Head Tom Dooley famous, Gillian Welch from Florence and the Machine, is that her name?
So,
yeah. And Nico Case and many others have recorded a version of Poor Ellen Smith.
So this is one of those songs, and if you're in the genre and you tour and you put out music long enough, you're probably going to do a cover of this song.
Yes.
Right?
I would say, yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, super famous murder ballad out of North Carolina. We've got a couple of those. Oh Me Wise is another North Carolina-based murder ballad. And then we have, of course, the Tom Dooley song.
Yes, and there was the famous Oh Fly Away Shipbird murder ballad.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nah, that was, oh gosh, I'm off my game. I'll knock the rust off, folks.
You're going to knock the rust off?
Yup.
Okay.
I am.
Well, Dylan, that has been the murder of Ellen Smith, a case that sparked this famous murder ballad.
Yes, and then we'd like to again thank Justin and Surly Sriracha. Surly's back again for sponsoring today's episode.
Now let's talk a little bit about the Hotel Zinzendorf, because I told you that I visited the site of the hotel because it no longer stands. So about 6 months or so after Ellen was killed, the hotel caught fire and burned to the ground.
Wow.
So it was only open for, a very short period. I think it opened in May of 1892, and by the end of November, 1st of December, burned to the ground.
So you had this grand hotel.
Yes.
And it didn't last very long at all.
Nope.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's probably another reason why this Ellen Smith story has gotten so much attention.
Right.
Because not only was she murdered behind this hotel, but then it mysteriously goes up in flames like just a few months later.
Yeah. And so, wow. Thank you for that story, Heather.
You're welcome.
And one last thing, I would like to dedicate today's episode to a listener. They're going to remain anonymous, but let's send all our positive energy to this listener. Let's do it.
Yeah, we do have a listener that's having a hard time right now.
It's true.
We hope that things get better.
We hope everything works out as good as it can, and you are in our hearts.
Yeah, and this is very vague, but you know who you are.
Yeah, you know who you are.
We're sending you all the good wishes.
All right, so thank everyone. We are back, and we're going to have such a fun midweek. So much going on. I got to do plenty of studying on all the stuff. We've been moving, obviously. And I haven't even been able to dig into all this stuff that has happened in the last week and a half.
It's a lot, bro.
It is a lot.
So I can't wait to sit down and pop out a true crime recap with you. I'm going to call it that, too.
That might be the new name of our midweek.
The recap?
Yeah, the Mountain Murders recap.
Nice. Okay. Well, Dylan, it's been fun talking to you. If you've got feedback, a listener story, you just want to say hi, send us an email, mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from you guys. Bye, Dylan.
Bye, Heather.